Alright guys, this is Thomas Bird with Tabletop Life. It's been a little while since we put out some content. A lot of things going on in the background, trying to get some stuff situated. We're going to put out some streaming stuff soon, so we're reorganizing some of our equipment. We did a big job for Games Workshop out at Adepticon, so that was a little bit taxing on our resources, so we kind of been reshuffling. Also, I've been gearing and grinding against the new Tyranids, and a lot of those games were just pretty one-sided. Tyranids really strong. Once I got the new FAQ, which I think is really good, I actually had a very good game and actually pulled out a win. So I think I'm like 1-5 or 1-6 against Tyranids. Otherwise, they're still very strong, still very good. This list is not the list that I used to beat the Tyranids. I actually had a unit of Tyrannic Veterans, which you don't need Tyrannic Veterans against Tyranids per se. They're just good all around. Cheap Marines for Ultramarines that really work well with Armor of Contempt. But I couldn't get them painted in time. We have a tournament coming up this weekend, the Mayhem GT up in North Carolina. Gonna go see a bunch of friends. Hopefully we get some content for you guys to watch. And then hopefully the Ultramarines can do a little bit of work. So last minute, not getting the Tyrannic Veterans done threw me for a little bit of a loop. So I kind of went back old school and have put in a battalion. Normally I would shoot the battalion, take out some troops and free those points up for more offense or defense of units, but I don't have that in this list. I'm trying to play a little bit more scoring, so we'll see. I did play a game with this list against Tyranids and it went really bad, so we'll say that's a bad matchup for this particular version of the list. They all have their ups and downs, so we'll dive into the list and then we'll talk a little bit more about each of the units as we go through. So Tigurius, he's always in the list. I played around with a lot of versions when Armor of Contempt came out. Do you need the invulnerable save? You know, do you want to give up a Whore the Witch? He's a super good Psyker, but if you don't do it, that frees up all sorts of points. And it becomes interesting about, you know, if you need a second HQ, there really aren't a lot of great choices. So interesting. I eventually went back and put Tigurius in. That invulnerable save was too strong. There's still Marines with Hellblasters, Marines with high AP guns, Tau, Tyranids all have really good AP guns. So you ended up, you know, there's not always a piece of cover, or some armies just ignore cover. It just became problematic, and you really wanted that invulnerable save. So he's in the list. And you also miss his powers. Psychic Fortress is obviously the go-to for the invulnerable save. But Might of Heroes and Veil of Time, those are pretty clutch powers. I use those a lot more than I realized. And it felt a miss when I took it out. So that's the first HQ. Over here, love and hate this guy. Mostly hate. Primaris Chaplain on bike. He's so annoying for my opponents, so that's kind of always good. But like, he's super annoying for me, so you know that's the problem. Usually I'm struggling with the Warlord traits. I took the Judiciary out, so no fight last guy, so that frees up my second Warlord trait. So I've given him Wise Orator. Why it's important, why that's a big deal. It lets him roll his litanies on 2s. Normally he's rolling on 3s, and every time I give him a litany to roll on a 3, he just fails it. He fails it a lot. Way more than he should, usually in the most important turn. Or he'll pass 1 and fail 1, which, you know, math-wise probably is right, but like, he's always failing the one that's super important. You're like, I just don't have 2 CP to spend to make that 1 go off. So I put Wise Orator on there to make sure he rolls on 2s so he can get his litanies off. And of course I play the game against Tyranids, and on the critical turn that guy rolled Snake Eyes for both litanies and just like failed all the way. So if I could just take that guy out, I'd be so so thrilled. He's really expensive. One list had no Chaplain and no Tigurius. It was like a new world. I didn't know. Last HQ is Inquisitor. This is just a basic Xenos Inquisitor. We gave him the regen CP Warlord trait. He's got the Relic Blade, wound on 2s. He's just there to do psychic actions if you need to. He can sit on a back objective and cast his power Psychic Veil, which means he can't be targeted or shot unless he's the closest, and he can't be charged unless you're within 6 inches. So like, people can't deep strike in and charge him because they can't declare if they're not within 6 inches. So he could be like a very toolbox guy just to run around, do specific things. Or he can just run up and do a smite if those powers or those things aren't good. So he's got some utility. On the troop side, the mainstay, the 10-man intercessors. At one point, I took these units out. I played against some sisters, and that AP1 against any kind of armor of contempt Marines, just not even worth it. You're like, a unit that usually does tons and tons of work became next to useless, so I almost took them out. I mean, they're still good for troops. They're still good for bodies. They're still good for wounds. Armor contempt makes them live a lot longer, so they're still good. So they ended up coming back, and they're still good versus other armies. So as long as you're not really expecting that level of work out of them versus Marines, you're probably all right. But it does impact a lot because the overall offense of the list goes down quite a bit because of these guys' lack of flexibility into some lists. When I went to the battalion, I took out some elite choices, and that left me with this weird hole of 30 or 40 points. No matter how I played around with it, I always was 15, 20 points here or there. One way I needed some, or I didn't have enough. So in this version, I ended up taking the 2 troops and making them both infiltrators. So these 2 units here, 2 units of 5 infiltrators with Helix. When they work really well, they're solid gold. If nobody cares about deep striking in and they're just Marines, they're like the most expensive Marines you can buy. So we'll see. 2 units of infiltrators. Love and hate it all too many ways. Just for mission stuff, super cheap. Move blocking, can take some smites. It's got a land speeder storm, super quick movement. You can throw it out there if you don't want to expose your army too soon. You kind of grab a far off objective or contest. It's a pretty good buy. It's always hard not to take a couple of these, but points are always at a premium. On the kind of high AP full volume fire here, we've got a big 6-man unit of Eradicators. They are heavy meltas and multi-meltas. Usually these guys are combat squatting. I'm going to take them as a 6-man instead of a 2-3-mans, just for the option for to the last. I almost never take that, but you never know when you want to do it. In this list, if you're going to take to the last, it would be this unit, the Eradicators. It would be Guilliman himself, and then it would be the 10-man intercessors. So not always the best choice, but if you combat squat them, you can stretch those points out if you really want to turtle up. 5-man Hellblasters, I could play around with going to 10. Again, these guys are also very expensive Marines. They die very easily, so it's really hard to protect multiple units of them. It's nice to have 2 units to shoot, but when you get shot back, it's hard to defend more than 1 unit. So right now I'm running just 5. Standard, the assault, got the Mastercrafted on the Sarge super toolkit to just bust out with 3 damage. Sometimes that's super relevant. I'll split fire him all the time on some different target just to force some priority checks. Got the Apothecary. He's got the other Warlord trait, Selfless Healer, so we're going to grow Marines back. We want it to cost free. And then we got 2 units of Victrix guards. Even with the bodyguard change, these guys are still stout. 2-up save. They don't have a regular storm shield, so Armor of Contempt works on them. So 2-up with the -1 ignore. And then, they have 3-up immortal save. So nothing wrong with these guys. They still do work. They're still good counteroffensive. They're still defensive guys. Primaris. They stick around with Guilliman and help him fend off the stuff. There's not a lot of fighting in this list outside of just those couple of units and some characters. So like if it gets into a full melee, we're kind of limited. This list is not really built for that. It wants to shoot you and maneuver a little bit. So that's the list. Is it great? Is it my favorite list? Probably not. I kind of put it together last second, and there's a reason why I haven't been running this list in a while, because I just don't like it. But it still does work, so we're going to see how we can do with it. That's the list we're taking to Mayhem GT. Again, a couple good guys, friends of mine. If you're going to be in the North Carolina area, definitely go check it out. This weekend, 2-day GT, I think there's 100 players. So pretty good. So I think this is their first big GT that they're running. So definitely want to go out and support those guys. I'm sure they'll have some streaming, so see if you can check out the content online. And then look for some videos once the show is done on my progress throughout the weekend. And hopefully, Ultramarines will do some work. Take care, and we'll see you next time.